Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our November Lunch and Learn member webinar. Today's webinar is going to be on a very exciting topic, saving the Luther Hotel in Palacios. My name is Samantha Hunnick, and I am the programs coordinator here at Preservation Texas. And before we start, I wanted to let you all know that this webinar is going to be recorded and that recording is going to go up on your online Preservation Texas member portal so that you can go back and watch it later if you want to. And also we're going to be having a Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So go ahead and post any questions you have during the presentation in the Q&A by using that Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar, and we will address your questions towards the end. Your presenters for today's webinar are Margaret Doughty and Edith Gower. They are co-chairs of the Palacios Preservation Association, which is the group that has led the charge to save the Luther Hotel from almost certain destruction. And today you're going to get to hear their incredible story. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Sam. We are very excited to be here. Looking forward to talking to everybody today. I'm going to apologize. I've got my notes in my hand. We're the two little old ladies who saved the hotel, and two little old ladies don't always have such good memories. So, first of all, in 1997, Edith and I came down to Palacios for a weekend. We'd never heard of Palacios before, but we knew that the LaBelle excavation of the LaSalle, beautiful LaSalle ship, was taking place out in a cofferdam out in the bay, and that it was each of the pieces was being taken apart and brought on shore by archaeologists who were staying at the Luther Hotel. And we happened to be staying at the Luther Hotel. And so that was our very first experience of the town. But we fell in love with it, and we bought a home here. And for a long time, we were Palacios weekenders, and then we became Palacios retirees. So we saw the hotel over many years, coming and going, just like any other community business. Often perhaps it needed a coat of paint, perhaps it needed some extra help with the landscaping. But over time, it was really the heart and soul of Palacios. Jack Finley was the owner of the hotel, and he was very beloved in the community. He became sick. When he passed away, he did not have a will. And so everything kind of moved into a phase where the probate court was looking at what should become of the hotel. We began to hear maybe that something was happening. There were kind of rumors around town, and there was some conversation about a possible demolition. And as people heard some of these stories, we realized that something needed to be done. Many of the Luther's friends stepped forward. Roman McAllen, a preservationist, talked to Preservation Texas to try and find out what was going on. And then the word was out. Preservation Texas named the Luther Hotel as the most endangered building in the whole state of Texas. So that was the beginning of the story. And let me turn over to Edith to share what happened next.
Good afternoon. I'm going to share my screen and run through a quick slide presentation to just show you the history of the hotel and why we thought it was worth saving, and then how, kind of quick and dirty, how we saved it, what we did, to give you a general overview. So here is the Bayview Hotel in 1903, which is which was built around the corner from where the Luther is now, by the architect Jules Leflin, and for the Texas Rice Company, who had just bought Shanghai Pierce's bull pasture and cut it up into lots to sell to people coming down from the north, who wanted a better climate and maybe grow rice and citrus fruit. In just 2 short years after it had been built there, they moved it around the corner so that it could be right opposite the pleasure pavilion that's at the end of this pier you see in this picture. And I thought, my gosh, how could they do that in that day and age? They took it into 3 different parts and hitched it to a mule team and rode it around the corner. Turns out that Jules Leflin, when he landed from Denmark in Indianola, his first job here was to take the houses that had been saved from the 2 hurricanes that happened in Indianola, and move them to Cuero. So if he can move a bunch of houses from Indianola to Cuero, I guess he can move a little hotel around the corner. It declined over the years, but you can still see that in this photograph that there are cars in the parking lot. And then in 1936, Elsie and Charles Luther bought it. He was a man about town. He was the mayor and the Chevy dealer, and the seawall commissioner chair. And they did a lot of renovating, including making the new motor court. They also entertained the troops. The Camp Hewlin was an army base right outside of Palacios. Palacios increased by 12,000 people during the war, and these are some of them running through their ritual on the seafront in front of the hotel. And they also entertained Rita Hayworth, who was here to entertain the troops, along with lots of other artists. This is Ida Mae Calloway. She is the mother of Elsie Luther. She was also the Sunday school teacher of LBJ. And Elsie was in LBJ's Sunday school class. And Mrs. Calloway wrote a lot to LBJ through his political career, including a letter that asks him if it wouldn't be a good idea to have one of the battleships from Texas be a kind of memorial to the Texas soldiers who were lost during World War II. And he said that would be a great idea, and he ended up with another representative getting Congress to sell the battleship Texas to the state of Texas for $1. And now we know that's kind of up in the air as to what's going to happen to the battleship next. Also in the mid-90s, the hotel was host to world-renowned marine archaeologists who excavated LaSalle ship La Belle from the bottom of our bay here that sank in 1686, arguably one of the most important sunken treasures in the Western world. So fast forward 20 years or so to today, when we discovered that the hotel was in grave danger. We did all kinds of things, including going to Corpus Christi, where the lawyers were to deal with this demolition. They were preparing to demolish as we were trying to do what we could to save the hotel. We protested. We got our friends to protest. We went to court. We went to court in buildings. We went to court online. There's Judge Polly, and she has a YouTube channel. The lawyers argued outside the courtroom at the gate to the hotel. It was a mess when we went in, total disaster, really ransacked. But what the architect, Annie Saucer, the preservation architect, saw was straight lines, and you can see them here. It was a good candidate for restoration. We also saved the tree. There's a beautiful, beautiful tree on the property that was dying in the drought the summer before last. And every Tuesday and Friday evening, we'd all come out and water the tree. And we did save it. We had a booth that went around everywhere. We had a garage sale. We went to events to make ourselves known. We had Lady Lucer, in fact, who popped up in all the right places at all the right times. We cleaned the hotel, and we cleaned the hotel, and we gave away mattresses that were good to people locally. And we sorted, and we sorted. And from the end of January to the end of April, we had put in 1,000 hours of volunteer cleanup time. Along the way, we celebrated the 4th of July, and we were collecting oral histories from folks around town. And we had meetings and more meetings and more meetings. We had guests. This is the Texas Historical Foundation came to visit one day. And they kind of put us in touch with J.P. Bryan here, who bought the hotel. He's shaking hands with our mayor, Rick Sink. So we sold the hotel. So we will go on with the story of that. But to begin with, the reasons that we thought it was important to save the hotel is that the history is the history of our town. It's the town's history. The building is the biggest and oldest building in town, the center of our town. It has always been an economic driver, and it is a Texas marker and on the National Register. So that feels like the public should be invested in its future. So, Margaret, if you will take it from there.
So you can tell it's a wonderful old building. It's really an exciting story. We didn't have a roadmap. Each situation in saving a historic building is probably very different. But the first thing that we did was to meet with all of the players. The Ed Rachel Foundation was the demolition buyer. We met with them. We met with the city council, the museum. We met with and brought together all of the community that was interested. And Nick Herman and a developmental colleague of his joined the team as the restoration buyer. So let me share, as I talk, a few words of advice if you're interested in trying to do this kind of work in your own community. One thing is, I think you have to be very loud. You have to be visible. The message has to be clear and strong. No demolition was the message. We were community members fighting against the bulldozers, and time was running out. So we had to be forceful. We had to be fast. We created a framework for authenticity. We had to have some kind of credibility. We started off as these two little old ladies, and we grew very quickly to a team of most incredible, very competent volunteers. We invited the community to a meeting and suggested that we create the Palacios Preservation Committee. And we chose the word committee because we wanted it to be able to fold into an existing organization eventually, if that was possible. The museum was that organization. However, the museum was receiving funding from the Ed Rochelle Foundation, and the museum board felt that it was a conflict of interest for them to work on the project to save the hotel. So we changed our name to become the Palacios Preservation Association, to become completely independent and to be able to move forward. We are not a 501c3. You don't have to be a 501c3. We are a community organization. So another word of advice, you have to be well organized and you have to be inclusive. In preservation, there's room at the table for everyone. You have to be kind and considerate and fight on a number of fronts at the same time. Not put all your eggs in one basket. In fact, our goal, and I'm going to show you the back of the t-shirt that I'm wearing. The front says the Luther Hotel, and the back is creating win-win solutions. So our goal was not only credibility, but to act in a very responsible way in the middle of the community. We needed to make friends in high places. We were not experts. And very quickly, a number of experts in all sorts of different fields came together to work with us. So when Preservation Texas sent out its alert on November the 2nd, 2022, things moved so fast that we were organized by November the 5th. And we have really not stopped since then. We have to be well represented, and Edith will tell you a little bit about the legal team that came together to work with us. We had to, it's kind of funny, we had to sell a hotel that we didn't own. The hotel was not on the market. It was never listed. And so we had to move very quickly. And one of our volunteers, Brandy Pittman, put a most remarkable presentation together for prospective buyers of the hotel. Our structure was odd in many ways. Our inner circle was about 30 local volunteers, and they stood by to help at every turn. Our front office was Old Main Bookstore, and Jan at the bookstore hosted lots of meetings as people came together to determine what our next steps were. Our back office was right here in our living room. And we regularly had meetings of the key PPA leaders here. We had a leadership team and we had an advisory group. And the advisory group were those experts that came together to help, including a hotel operator, because if we were selling a hotel, the first question was who was going to operate it. So we did a lot of work on trying to identify the right kind of operator. And we had a preservation architect who again, donated her time, which was very excellent. So altogether, thousands of people helped in saving the Luther. I want to just mention some of the national organizations that were helpful. Apart from Preservation Texas, the Texas Historical Commission, the National Trust for Historic Places, the Houston Heritage Society, Historic Hotels of America, Matagorda County Historical Commission, and many, many others. And I want to mention that not everybody was backing us. There were naysayers. And some of those naysayers really helped move things forward, because you wonder who they might have been, particularly, who would benefit if the hotel was torn down. And they even put a sign on the fence outside the hotel, a very nasty sign. So we were brought together by some of those naysayers. They helped to strengthen our resolve. So another word of advice, grateful and follow the rule of the 7 thank yous. We appreciated all of the people who helped us. And one of our volunteers drew this lovely photograph of Edith and I as superheroes. And we expanded that idea to create luggage tags so that all the volunteers became superheroes. This one was given to me. But every volunteer became a Luther superhero and could have a luggage tag so that when the hotel was reopened, they would be able to bring their luggage up to the hotel and show that they were part of saving the hotel. Let me turn it back to Edith.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Ed Rochelle Foundation, and then talk about the legal setup. The Ed Rochelle Foundation is a charitable foundation that was establishing an oyster hatchery in Palacios and buying up lots of land in town. They submitted a contract to the estate of the hotel's deceased owner in May of 2022. The head of the foundation announced that at a city council meeting in June that they had plans to purchase the hotel, and he suggested that they might only be able to keep the middle section of it and not the wings. That raised eyebrows, but wasn't a call to action. In fact, we were at that meeting, but we were there to talk about a swimming pool, not a hotel. In July, the foundation decided it was not worth spending money to save any of the hotel, and then submitted a new contract to the estate at the end of August, requiring that the family demolish the building. The city manager knew about this, but the public did not. When it was made public in November by Preservation Texas, halfway through the 90-day moratorium preventing demolition that the THC had imposed in mid-September, one of the first things the Palacios Preservation Association did was write to Paul Althide, the director of the foundation. Having no response, we asked the city manager to help us try to set up a meeting with him, which she did. We met with him at the Druhl Foundation, our wonderful local foundation, on December 5th, 2022. He told us that he was not a preservationist and he had no forthcoming plans for the property, and dismissed the historic tax credit expert who was there to inform him that he could get 45% of what he spent on restoration back. He said that the earliest that the hotel could be raised was December 19th, but he did say he would not start to demolish it until January 15th. A month after our meeting with Mr. Althide, a dozen or so of us went to Corpus Christi to talk to the chief counsel of the Ed Rochelle Foundation and with a lawyer from the Jack Finley estate, whose offices were around the corner from each other. At the foundation meeting, we were told that the foundation always works alone and never has any partners. So the notion of perhaps leasing the hotel was nixed. The lawyer from the estate assured us that his hands were tied and that he couldn't entertain any alternate proposals for the sale of the property, or he would be sued. And given that the hotel was never on the market, we suspected a quiet deal may have been made between the foundation and the estate. Although it was technically the estate that was to demolish the hotel, the demolition company who was readying the building was also in Corpus Christi, also around the corner from the foundation, and had been employed by them before. The demolition company was taking trailer loads of furnishings from the hotel back to Corpus. They were taking window air conditioners to sell for $10 a piece to those in need in Corpus. They said they were taking artwork off the wall and Googling the artists and seeing that they could get maybe $200 to $300 a piece for it. When one of the former hotel staff members spotted some of the items of hers that had remained in the hotel due to the quick exit when it closed, being loaded up on a trailer, she was told that she could not have them, that they belonged to the Rochelle Foundation. We had occasion in January to confirm Mr. Altheid's promise that he would not tear down the building on January 15th. He confirmed that and added that he would continue to be unresponsive, his words, and he kept them. Now, let me tell you a bit about the legal process. In January, on January 11th, we already had been in touch with the lawyers from the National Trust of Historic Places, and they were giving us advice. And we had feelers out all over everywhere trying to find legal assistance. On that day, we had a contact tell us to call Chris Bell, a lawyer who had been on Houston City Council, he'd run for governor and was a congressional representative. He lives in a house where Sam Houston once slept, so we knew his heart was in the cause. On January 17th, with the hotel was still standing, Chris Bell got a temporary restraining order from the judge lasting until February 2nd. This was the first of many restraining orders, and it was an auspicious first day in the court for us. Chris had told us to meet him late in the morning in the Bay City courthouse. So we thought, good, we can go do our water aerobics in El Campo, which is 40 minutes to the north. Bay City is 30 minutes to the east. So we went to do our water aerobics, and one of Margaret's best leadership traits is she's always within hand's reach of her telephone. So the telephone was sitting by the side of the pool and it rang, and it was Chris saying, the judge is sick. The person taking his place is the judge in Wharton. Well, Wharton was 30 minutes to the east of where we were in El Campo. That meant there was not time to go back home and put clothes on and go back to Wharton. So all we had was our bathing suits and our cover-ups. So we leapt out of the pool, went to Walmart in Wharton, bought everything we needed, including underwear, and changed in the Walmart restroom, and got to the courthouse just as Chris was coming up to speak to the judge. And as we were leaving the courthouse and going across the street to a restaurant, I was walking on the sidewalk behind them, and there was Margaret with her new shirt on, with the tag still dangling from the sleeve. So that was how we went to court the first day. Shortly thereafter, John Griffin from Victoria joined the team. He lives in a house built by Jules Leflin, the same architect as the hotel. In all, we had 7 splendid lawyers volunteering their services, and we were able to pay all their out-of-pocket expenses. In mid-February, not only did the judge extend the TRO, but also ordered that the proceedings be moved back to the probate court and that the hotel remain standing in the meantime. Legal issues were approached from several different angles. The Palacios Preservation Association pled that the public had some say in the matter of tearing down a designated historic building at the center of their town. That didn't fly initially, and we were told that we did not have standing, but Chris argued that we did, and we were fairly quickly back at the table. 3 plaintiffs had claims against the estate for property loss, back pay, health problems, having claims resulting from the dealings of cleaning up after helping with broken pipes after the freeze. These were all resolved and the situation satisfactory to the claimants. Nick Herman, who had a counter offer pending, was also represented by counsel. When one of the heirs came forward to say that she did not want the hotel demolished, her case was also presented by one of these lawyers. At the beginning of March, probate Judge Polly Spencer held her first online hearing. The participants were on Zoom, and the observers you could see on and hear on the judge's YouTube channel. One highlight was that the estate's lawyer, when asked by the judge if he had applied to the court to sell the property, admitted that he had not, which is one of the requirements of having to sell the property. Our lawyers kept asking to see the accounting of how much the estate's assets were being spent. And the estate lawyers finally provided records up to the end of 2022, but said they couldn't provide any more because someone at the end of 22 had written them an intimidating letter threatening to sue them. And that turned out to be me. And I did write a letter, but it had nothing to do with intimidation or suing anybody. We didn't even have lawyers then. That spring, Phil Fletcher and Victoria Kepsel, who were close friends of Jack's, the deceased owner, and knew his 90-year-old sister, who was the administrator of the estate, gave her a friendly phone call one day, which ended up with her saying that we did not, that she did not want to tear down the hotel. When they alerted the lawyers to this, she wasn't, and called back, she wasn't talking to anybody. And so within a few weeks, the lawyers did a journey to Alabama and deposed her. She had no recollection of signing anything that would have allowed the hotel to be destroyed. So shortly after that, we were talking to Elizabeth Gromit at the Texas Historical Commission about something other than this. And she said that the estate's lawyer had reapplied for the building to be demolished. The first demolition process expired in March because they had not torn the building down by then. And we were quick to send her the deposition transcript, and she quickly denied the request. Also, at about the same time, Dee Dee Detter, one of the 30-some heirs, signed the change.org petition and contacted us through our website to say that she wanted to honor her uncle's wishes. It took great courage for her to challenge her beloved Aunt Annie Ruth. We tried hard to contact the heirs, but they were kept completely in the dark. The estate lawyers had no obligation, felt no obligation to them. The summer of 2023 was long and hot, and the wheels of justice went very slowly. But at the end of the summer, just as Dee Dee's lawyer was asking that the administrator be removed, the administrator resigned, and the Rochelle Foundation's contract had expired, given that the family had not demolished the building, and it was not renewed. Nick Herman's colleagues with the cash had grown weary over the months and were not willing to re-up. So he found a way to submit a new contract, but with funding not as secure as it was before. He spent hours learning about tax credits and financing and trying to figure out a way, and we worked on a prospectus and list of prospects. Well, it took 4 months for the legal system to appoint and get a new administrator up to speed. We were grateful that the judge leaned toward accepting the offer and not putting the hotel on the market. And the new administrator was happy with the help that the PPA had to offer. The hotel had been totally ransacked, so we volunteered to clean it up, make it more attractive to a new buyer. And we also acted as her eyes on the ground, taking care of mowing and hurricane cleanup, etc. You got more? No, okay. So let me talk now. Sorry, go ahead. Let me talk now about leadership. we were almost always in way over our heads when it came to legal issues, financial issues, and real estate issues. The only thing we knew for sure was that saving the building was the absolutely right thing to do, and that we couldn't stop once we started. So we just needed to cast our nets far and wide and find anyone who could help us with any of that. It was just amazing how people who cared came out of the woodwork. We were not exactly sitting and twiddling our thumbs in our retirement rocking chairs, but our other commitments were not great. We had marched and we had held up signs. We had lived together for 27 years and had worked together before, but it was not easy having to make dozens of decisions together day in and day out. Looking back, putting this presentation together, it was really amazing seeing how fast we worked and moved initially. Our duties were pretty well divided and overlapping in that Margaret is an extrovert networker, and I am happy keeping track of money, making copies and organizing cleaning schedules, and we both can write and edit and speak more or less. Of course, the prize was to save the hotel, which we have all done. To have played a leading role in that effort is something I would have been grateful for, even if we hadn't been able to save it. Working for justice is a team sport, and we are proud to have been coaches for a super team of people that we are so privileged to know. Margaret?
So that's the story, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you guys. That was such an inspiring story and great to hear kind of the whole saga from beginning to end. We're going to go into the Q&A portion now. So if y'all have any questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A feature. We have a few comments from people saying this is great. This is from Carolyn Appleton, who is involved with the Atlanta Miller Grade School up in Cass County. She said she is working with another almost demolished historic school, almost lost it too, but they're on their way with fundraising, the help of Architexas. And then Lila Knight here in Hayes County says, this is an incredible story. If y'all could maybe explain a little bit about the future, now that JP Bryan has purchased it, what's going to happen now?
Well, that's a really interesting question. We had a meeting at our front office in the bookstore the other day, and we did a little survey for all of the volunteers to say to them, what do you want to become of the Preservation Association now that the job is done? And one of the questions was, do you want to continue? Do you want to stop? And 100% of them said, we want to continue. And so we're in the process, we're obviously working closely with Mr. Bryan and his team, and we're very, very grateful to them for keeping us involved and including us. We've got some projects that we haven't finished, the oral history project. We're working with the museums on Main Street, the Texas Historic Commission and Smithsonian project, looking at coastal communities. And so our group is doing a Luther display for that exhibit. We are in a community that I think has had a level of interest kind of elevated because of the Luther. There are many old, historic, wonderful buildings in Palacios. And so we probably, I think, will go from working just on the hotel to looking at the other possibilities in town. And I think our team of volunteers is excited to keep moving forward.
All right, a couple more questions have come in. Are there any other buildings that are at risk in Palacios that need to be saved?
Yes, there are. And I think, as Margaret just said, it's high on people's lists now. And we can do something about them. I'd just like to say one quick thing about we didn't really save the Luther just for sentimental reasons. We saved it because it was an economic driver of the city. And I was blown away by how fast the economy changed right away. Within a couple of weeks, the man who got $400 a year, $400 a month for mowing the Luther lawn, now has a full-time job. And people have come to town and stayed at a bed and breakfast and eaten at restaurants, galore, because people are coming to town to get set up to renovate the hotel. It's quite amazing, and I'm sure it will just keep right on going. And the J.P. Bryan just rented a storefront on Main Street that the Palacios Preservation Association gets to use, which is just grand. Yeah, so it really making a lot of difference already.
Yes, sounds like Palacios is going to have a bit of a renaissance. How did you connect with NPR and Texas Monthly? What was the feedback or result of that media attention?
Well, I think in the whole long journey, the media were very, very supportive. I mean, we very quickly put a media list together and sent out news releases pretty much every month. And we built a relationship with various individuals, but especially the Texas Monthly. One of our advisors, Phoebe Tudor, who's now become the president of the National Trust for Historic Places, she was the one who made the connection with Texas Monthly, and that's been a great relationship for us. So I think once the media understood what was going on, they very quickly were calling us, and we didn't have to do press releases. There'd be a phone call or a text, anything to add this week. The Palacios Beacon runs still a column every week that Edith writes. So the media became very good friends very quickly, and we're very appreciative of it.
Great. Is there anything you would have done differently if you were starting over? A lesson learned?
I don't think so, in that we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, it really was a matter of bluffing our way to the table. And I mean, we're so incredibly fortunate that so many volunteers, so many experts, so many people rallied to this cause, that it wasn't in the end anything that Edith or I did. It was putting together that team of experts, and that over time, some of these pinpricks are going to connect together and it's going to work out. But we did not know until the very, very last minute that it was going to work out. I mean, we were working on the earnest money for the contract a month out from contract closing without having a confirmed buyer. So, the work that you all did, I mean, when Preservation Texas became our fiscal agent, that was a turning point. That was something to learn. But I don't think we would have done anything differently. Do you? Yeah.
Have any city leaders who were encouraging the demolition come around to support the project?
Everybody is grateful. Everybody seems to be appreciated for the role that they played, without wondering what that role may have been. Yeah, nobody likes a winner better than a community that, that was struggling. This is going to turn the future of Palacios around. And so, yeah, the naysayers came to the table.
That's interesting. How can we stay informed about the Luther restoration process and the Palacios Renaissance? Do you have any newsletter or website that we can follow along?
We have a website, and we have still the columns in the Beacon. We have not continued to do the newsletters. We put out 60 newsletters in 2 years, and it was hard work, and I don't think we need to be doing that anymore. But I think we still have a very good newsletter list. We have a good Facebook page. The Palacios Preservation Association is commenting all the time. So also, if people are interested to follow along with what's happening, they're welcome to email us and ask us and call. We are very happy to give updates and offer advice and help. But no, we weren't the experts to begin with, and we're not the experts now.
And we can find that contact info on your website. What is it? SaveTheLuther.com?
SaveTheLuther.com.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in this afternoon. And thank you, Margaret and Edith, for your presentation. And I wanted to let everyone know that we're not going to be having a webinar next month. With the holiday season being so busy for a lot of us. But our January webinar will be like a Preservation Texas annual report. So our board president and staff are going to be providing an overview of what we've accomplished in 2024, and then also sharing some of our plans for 2025. So that'll be a good opportunity for y'all to ask us any questions or even offer some input or ideas. And that's going to be taking place on Wednesday, January 15th. So mark your calendars. And lastly, if anyone's interested in presenting a future webinar, please reach out to me. And again, thank you for joining us today, and I hope everyone has a good rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you, Sam.